doing a burnout on a dyno. It's not keeping any traction. What's up, everybody? This is Brenton Brown from Forza Tuning and Performance, and today we're going to finish up this Dodge Demon on the dyno, show you all some footage. Let's see what kind of numbers it puts down. Without any further ado, let's get to work. So we got it on the dyno. We got any little quirks worked out of it. This car should be leaving this week, so we're just doing the final, the tuning in the car. And once I get some pulls in, I'll update you and kind of let you know where it's at or whatever. So to prepare a car to be tuned with nitrous is going to be a little bit dependent on what platform we're dealing with. So for this Dodge Demon, it's really not all that much different because the Demon is such a durable platform to begin with. It makes a pretty good candidate for nitrous. Now, nitrous can be a little, some instances, harder on the engine, so you have to take into account how strong is the platform that you're working with, how tolerant is it going to be of the nitrous. So because the Demon is pretty, it's a very stout powertrain, makes a pretty good candidate. And as long as you're going fairly conservative, then you can use nitrous without really any downsides. As long as you're doing the proper fuel and the tune is very spot on, and I'll go over specifics of that. To begin with, you tune a vehicle exactly like you would any other, no difference at all. And in fact, you get it fully tuned out without the nitrous, okay? I'm just kind of writing the, I've got it tuned in there, but I'm just kind of updating it, just changes that I already know that I want. And then we'll start doing some pulls, whatever. I only like to spray nitrous when using like race gas, specifically like VP MS109. When you're spraying the nitrous, you're putting the engine under stress. So having a known good quality fuel that's right out of the barrel, you got plenty of octane, I feel like that basically makes it much safer. Pump gas, I'm not a big fan of spraying nitrous with pump gas. There's just too many variables there, in my opinion. Granted, I err on more of the side of being conservative with tuning and stuff. The last thing I want to do is damage somebody's car, so this is just my personal preference and the way I like to do it. I'm just setting the dyno up right now, get ready to run the car. Okay, so the car's doing good. It's basically tuned without nitrous. I'm just trying to get a clean pull as far as like a graph. So basically right now at 5,500 RPM, it's doing a burnout on the dyno. It's not keeping any traction. So we're gonna put this track bite on the tires and that should resolve the issue. So to put it on the tires evenly, I've just got a small paint roller. So I'm just gonna let the tires just roll very slowly and just walk behind the tire and apply it, and it'll get on the tire and then the rollers in a nice uniform manner. So we're gonna get the car fully tuned out and see what kind of numbers it makes with no nitrous at all. From there, since we're using what they call a wet kit, which is we're spraying nitrous oxide and additional fuel with the nitrous, we are going to basically dial in our target air-fuel ratio, taking into account the extra fuel that we're spraying with the nitrous system, and then we're gonna choose our nitrous pill or the jet size accordingly to how much power we wanna make. So we're gonna start off very conservative. So just incrementally going up in size until we get the power that we want. I'm pretty much done tuning the car prior to nitrous. So right now, that's the first hit of the day. The car hit right over 1,000 wheel. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and do another pull and let the car heat up a little bit. That way we don't have an unrealistic number. You know, the first hit when the engine's cool and not heat soaked, you're gonna get a higher number, which sounds great and everybody loves that, but realistically, the car is going to go to the track and it's not gonna be in this cold environment. You know, the car's gonna be hot. So before you start tuning any nitrous or anything, I want to go ahead and just usually I'll do 2 to 3 pulls and get the car warm so it's in like a real world scenario, and then go off that dyno number because that's just more realistic. So I'll do another pull here in a second, just kind of see where we end up, and then we'll start nitrous. Okay, so we've done a few pulls now. The car's basically up to operating temperature as far as it's got a little bit of heat soak, so it's more realistic. So as you can see on that last pull, it's making peak power around 6,500 RPM. That one made 981 at the wheels. This stands for with weather correction factor, so that's the number you want to look at. The 1,003 it feels pretty good out here today, but that's lowering it down to take into account the weather. So you want to go by the lower number. And then torque. On a car like this, once the converter flashes, it's going to shoot up really high. It's a little unrealistic because it's going to kind of spike as soon as the converter locks up. It's not like it's pulling 1,000 foot-pounds of torque throughout, so we're not really concerned about that. So right now, if we wanted to do like the quote-unquote glory pull, which is basically they take the RPMs up a little bit higher than normal, they cram in the last little bit of ignition timing, they do the car when it's cold just to make a dyno number. We could do that. I don't usually screw with all that. It's a waste of time, in my opinion. This is what the car is actually making. This is what I would let the car leave at. We're probably going to shoot for somewhere, at first I'm going to shoot for like 50 additional wheel horsepower. So something very, very small. And once you add nitrous, you have to start pulling ignition timing out, okay, to account for the extra nitrous. So from here, what we're going to do is now we're going to start introducing nitrous oxide into it. What I will do is, since the ignition timing that we're running right now will be for no nitrous, what I'm going to do is, before I do anything, I'm actually going to pull some timing back out as if I'm spraying nitrous, but I'm not going to. And I'm going to see what this number goes down to. And I'm going to use that as my nitrous baseline number. So that way I can see how much power each size pill is actually adding to the lower number. If I start right now, basically I have ignition timing set up high enough where you wouldn't want to spray nitrous on top of that. So I'm going to get a little bit more realistic number so I can kind of tell, are we getting 50 additional horsepower from nitrous, 100, 150, so on and so forth. So we'll kind of graduate there very slowly. So when you have a nitrous car, there's really not a whole lot extra that you need to do as far as taking care of it or after the fact, if the nitrous system is set up properly. So we have automatic bottle heaters on here. We have a fully adjustable ProMax controller from Nitrous Outlet. So the nitrous that's being delivered, the ramping rate, everything's going to be exactly dialed in. So your bottle temperature off the bottle heater will equate to bottle pressure. So we're going to keep that in a very close range. That way, every time the nitrous is delivered, it's a very uniform delivery. So we're spraying the nitrous at the same bottle pressure consistently. That way you get consistent results. If your bottle temperature is fluctuating a lot, or some guys won't have a heater, the nitrous, the same size pill, is going to yield drastically different results. So you want to try to stabilize as many variables as you can. That way, the consistency of the car is there. It's going to be the same power level or as close to it as possible. And then the tuning, when you get your car, dialed in exactly for a specific nitrous shot, then, if you're doing the same thing and you basically eliminate any variables, then the tuning is going to stay spot on all the time. So that's how we set it up. Trunk of the car, I'm going to show you all the nitrous setup. Right here, we have 2 carbon fiber bottles. We have the billet bottle bracket. It's kind of a tongue twister by Nitrous Outlet. And it also has bottle heaters integrated in underneath. And then, I don't know if you can see up in there, but it's important, the tubes that you see, those are blow-off tubes. So if in the event that the bottle pressure got too high, and that would only really occur if the heaters malfunctioned and the bottles got really hot, so the pressure got excessive. Not normal, but you have to think of every scenario. And the bottle pressure got too high to a dangerous level, then what it'll do, it has a cap in each bottle, and it blows the extra nitrous out so you don't have an explosion or anything like that. Now, if you don't have provisions made in your trunk or wherever your nitrous bottles are, it's literally going to come spraying out in the trunk of the car. It won't really hurt anything. If you were back there, it could burn you, probably scare the shit out of you. So those are blow-off tubes, and you don't have to, you can route them wherever you want to. What we do is we turn them 180 degrees and then turn them down out of the bottom of the trunk of the car. So if that happened it would just blow nitrous down straight underneath the car. It wouldn't be loud, you know, wouldn't be anything that would be alarming or anything like that. I mentioned earlier, as far as the type of fuel you use, I don't recommend, you know, spraying nitrous with pump gas. A lot of people do. It's just a personal preference of mine. I just err on the side of caution. You would definitely want to have the proper fuel, and that's going to be up to your tuner. You know, if the tuner says he set the car up where he feels it's safe to spray on 93, then just do specifically what the tuner set the car up for, and you should be safe. So the race gas is just my personal kind of preference. And other than that, you know, it's really, there's no extra maintenance that goes along with it, aside from just, you know, filling your bottles, you know, just periodically checking the nitrous system itself, make sure you don't have any leaks. But it's pretty much cut and dry. Okay, so the nitrous system that we're using, we talked about before, it's all from Nitrous Outlet. That's my personal favorite, you know, company to deal with when it comes to nitrous. They make a controller called a ProMax. It's relatively new. It is by far the most feature-rich nitrous controller on the market that I'm aware of today. So if you're going to use that, which I suggested, what you want to do is make sure that you update the firmware on the controller and on the display. They're two separate things. So update that before you start, and then go through all your inputs and make sure everything is reading correctly. So you're probably going to have things like RPMs or tach signal from the ignition coil. TPS obviously is inputs to engage the nitrous. You know, you're going to want at least a couple of those. So by inputs, I mean, you know, at, you know, such and such throttle percentage and RPM. You're going to want two different things to decide when the nitrous sprays. So before you get started, make sure your inputs are correct and reading correctly, and then we'll go ahead and go to, you know, go on to make pulls. I do a lot of street tuning. When you get up to the high power cars, doing wide open throttle testing on the street, obviously you have to be very careful. It has to be in a safe environment. You have to really ask yourself, you know, what kind of power is the car at? You know, I've tested some stage 4R demons before, and I mean, literally on the stock drag radials, you know, it's very easy to get the car sideways at 100 miles an hour. That's how hard it's pulling. It's happened to me before, scared the shit out of me. Especially when we have a car at this power level with nitrous. You know, we're not going to be doing any wide open throttle testing in a customer's car on the street. This is where a dyno is really handy, because you can strap it down and you can tune it in a very safe manner in a safe environment. So we won't be doing any wide open throttle testing on this car on the street. The customer can do that at the track himself, him driving his own car. So the other night, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was tired, I was kind of ready to be done with it. We were having trouble with the car hooking up, so I kind of thought about it and had, you know, a couple more ideas. So I lowered the tire pressure even further. I loaded the tires with even more track bite. And then I added this strap right here. Actually, a buddy of mine, David, told me, you know, suggested this. So this is basically just taking and pulling the two straps down as hard as possible to smash the tires into the rollers. And it actually worked pretty good. So we just hit 1155 wheel, and it actually held, you know, no problem at all. So I'll show you the dyno graph real quick. Basically it says 1188 at 6658 RPM. This is basically without weather correction, so you really don't want to look at that. This number down here is actually corrected for the weather. And I'll show you the graph here. Not the best looking dyno graph, we did get some wheel spin here in the beginning, you can see, but you got pretty solid horsepower line, you know, all the way till red line right here. So what we're gonna do is, we really want to hit 1200 or better wheel on this car. It's just kind of like a goal of the customers. He wanted the Demon stock wheels, stock drag radials, and he wants that 1200 wheel horsepower number. So what we're going to do is make some minor tweaks here now that we got the tires hooking up, and we're going to go ahead and do another pull, and let's see what we got. We are finally done. We got what the customer wanted. We got 1200 to the wheels. We actually broke it a little bit. 1234. It's 6,593 RPM. This torque number is ridiculous. It's just because when we hit it with the converter flashing and the nitrous, it throws it up. It's not a realistic number, obviously. On an automatic transmission, there's just nothing you can do about it. So that's not accurate at all, you know. But the horsepower, you know, at peak RPM, this is basically, so to explain this a little bit better, we have the nitrous starting to ramp in at 4,000 RPM. So basically when the converter flashes, and then right after that when the nitrous starts coming in, the tires will spin on the dyno for a second and breaks the tires loose. So it makes this exaggerated number right here. So that's not really, we're not really concerned about that. The 1234, as long as this number, this peak horsepower number is at the point where we're gonna shift, that's accurate. Before, when we'd see these horsepower numbers and you see the peak power at like 5,000 RPM or 5,100 RPM, but we're taking the car all the way up, what's happening there is at the point where the tire starts slipping, the power will drop down because it's not effectively, you know, spinning a roller anymore. So that's why peak power will be at such a low RPM. So we can see we finally got this with no wheel slip, got a ton of track bite on the tires. We've got the car strapped down tighter than a guitar string. We've got the tires at about 18 PSI hot. So we were finally able to ramp this nitrous in and get the number and get it on paper and everything. So that about wraps it up. We're done with the car. Okay guys, we just got back from California. We were out there at Speed Society headquarters working on a super cool project for them. So we got a lot of really exciting content coming up in the next few weeks. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscription button and then hit the notification bell. That way, as soon as we release the videos, you all get notified immediately and you can see exactly what we're up to out there. We get a lot of requests for more dyno footage. So we're gonna start, you know, giving you all exactly what you want. So we have a whole list of cars here that I have to tune that are waiting to leave. So we're gonna be doing a lot of dyno footage, showing you a lot of dyno numbers on different cars, different, you know, stages and configurations, so y'all can kind of see exactly what they put down. So thanks for watching, subscribe, hit the notification bell. See you guys later. Stay. Sit. Sit. I feel like that's the most accurate